big changes in the coaching staff here. Robert Saleh gets another crack. He's the head coach. Another former New York coach, Brian Daboll's now the offensive coordinator, but it's now Cam Ward in year 2 coming off a disappointing rookie season, and he's got some new weapons alongside him. They bring along Wan'Dale Robinson. They draft Carnell Tate, and the defense should be improved after some nice moves in free agency and in the draft. But overall, the big question mark this season is, can Brian Daboll take Cam Ward and turn him into the franchise quarterback that the Titans are hoping for? Your thoughts on if that's going to be the case, Brad? What do you think? Year 2 for Cam Ward.
Yeah, Cam Ward reportedly has dropped 10 lbs as well. So a little bit better shape, slender. And, a lot of people overhype the weight gain or weight loss for certain players that are out there. But there's no mistake, this roster on paper is better. The coaching staff is proven and better. So they should be able to move in the right direction, but still going to be a building block kind of process. I don't think with a snap of the fingers overnight, they're all of a sudden become like an 8-win team, maybe even a 7-win team when it's all said and done. I still think despite the upgrades on defense, that is a unit that's not overly impressive overall. They could obviously prove me wrong. I still think they're going to be bottom half this year, probably another year away from getting some additional pieces to really get up in that top half, not quite the upper echelon, but at least the top half of the league across the EPA data, across the board defensively. Offensively, Carnell Tate, a massive addition to this roster. They were kind of devoid of reliable pass catchers last season. Calvin Ridley, another year older, coming off another injury. It's definitely going to fall into the shadows of Carnell Tate, who looked spectacular in his OTA's debut. And then, of course, got Tony Pollard still there, Tyjae Spears, a change of pace option, some decent tight ends, and Gunnar Helm on the roster. Like, there's some encouragement, some encouraging signs overall for the Tennessee Titans, but it's baby steps, folks. Again, it's not going to be a quantum leap difference from last year to this year, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, look, it comes down to this offense, though. Their defense, despite having multiple players hurt last year, was actually, they were respectable. Titans, middle of the pack in terms of yards allowed per game. In terms of their passing defense, that was really their weakness. It was their secondary that kept getting burned. But in terms of stopping the run, we know they've got a big feisty front. They were in the top half of the league. But again, it was the inability for the offense to hold the ball. They weren't good in the red zone, and so they were in the bottom 5 in points allowed per game. 28 points per game allowed last year, and special teams was a big problem for them as well. So again, they got rid of Brian Callahan. So can this Titans offense take the next jump? You bring in 2 former New York coaches who were longtime coordinators, both then failed with the Jets and the Giants. Can Saleh and Daboll get this team to where they need to be here? Let's get to our 3-point stance here, Brad, and let's start with some fantasy football here as we are at the end of May. You mentioned OTAs. We got mandatory mini camp just about a week away, 2 weeks away for every team in the NFL, and training camp around the corner. So as we're sizing up this Titans offense, you mentioned a bunch of the names already. Who do you think brings the best value from this Titans offense that was very severely lacking firepower last year?
Yeah, everybody overlooks Tony Pollard every single year, it seems like, and they immediately write him off. He goes for dirt cheap in a lot of fancy drafts. They're talking about standard snake drafts or auction/salary cap exercises. And, this year, so far, based on the ADP, average draft position, more of the same, as he is RB31 in average best ball drafts right now, 88.16 overall, Pat. And I think that's a steal of a deal. You're basically giving it like an RB3, RB4 price. And he's a guy that, in a 12-team format, I think is going to be in the RB2 conversation. Mike Clay at ESPN is kind of projected for 1,076 rush yards, 6 rushing touchdowns, 30 receptions, 180 receiving yards, just inside the RB top 30. He's got the 6th easiest projected strength of schedule for a fantasy running back after having one of the hardest last season, so that's encouraging. He was number 16 in yak per attempt last season. Now, let's golf out there. Number 22 in missed tackles forced. Number 20 in yards created. Again, solid production across the board. He saw 67.2% of the opportunity share. I think at a minimum, it's going to be a 60-40 split between him and Spears. And if Ward does take that step forward overall, with Carnell Tate now in tow, that is only going to lighten those fronts and give him more exploitable running lanes that he could take advantage of. And a guy who's still south of 30 years old. So sign me up for Tony Pollard, man. I'll go the extra buck. I'll go the extra round to acquire his services, because right now he's highly affordable and a guy I think is going to turn a tidy profit.
Yeah, again, 4 straight years of 1,000 yards rushing for Tony Pollard. I agree with you. It feels like everybody's like, it's like, ooh, Tony Pollard, ooh. And yet the guy puts up 1,000 yards almost every single year and a handful of touchdowns. So I agree with you. The value you're getting there is, like you said, somebody that's a running back 3 or 4, and he's going to get the majority of the touches. That's for damn sure. And, as he stays healthy, you probably could book him for 1,000 rushing yards again. I'm going to go with the newest receiver via free agency, not Carnell Tate. Give me the guy in the slot that I think is going to have a big impact on this offense, because he's got his former head coach with him now. Give me Wan'Dale Robinson for the Titans. Wide receiver number 46, average draft position of 108. So if you got a 10-team league, you're getting him in round 11. If you got a 12-team league, you're getting him in round 9, close to round 10. Rondale Robinson last year with the Giants, 1,000 receiving yards, 4 touchdowns, but 92 catches. So again, you're playing in a PPR. I mean, he averaged 6 catches a game last year. And that was for a Giants offense that had some ups and downs, right? At the beginning of the year, and then Jackson Dart took over, and Malik Neighbors got hurt. So yes, he basically became the number 1 receiver. But the guy on the outside is a rookie who they just drafted in Carnell Tate. So again, Ryan Dable, he's going to have plenty of plays drawn up for Wan'Dale Robinson. That I am sure of. And I would think Cam Ward, yes, he wants to get chemistry going with Carnell Tate, but also he knows he's got a reliable vet in the slot that can get yards after the catch, and that is Wan'Dale Robinson's specialty. His route tree, I mean, it is very blooming. He can run all the freaking routes in the book. He could play on the outside, but he's going to primarily play in the slot, I would think, here on this team, playing in the slot at over 60% of the snaps last year. So that's just screams reliability. And it's a guy that has only missed 2 games in the last 3 years in Wan'Dale Robinson. So I think he's going to be involved. He is durable, and he's got a play caller that obviously trusts him. So I'll go Wan'Dale Robinson, who gives you the most fantasy football value for the Tennessee Titans. Brad, your favorite player or team prop for Tennessee this year would be what?
I'm going to go with Cam Ward and give me the over on 3,300 and a half pass yards at a -110 juice there at our friends at BetMGM. Look, I know Ward looked like a young and inexperienced quarterback. He was definitely the definition of a greenhorn last season, number 33 in adjusted completion percentage. But you peel back the layers of the onion. He was number 15 in deep ball completion percentage, quite respectable there. He's even better in the red zone at number 3 in red zone completion percentage, and the total air yards at number 12 overall. So a guy that can uncork down the field. And the cupboard was bare, again, with some of the weapons that he had. With the upgrades, you mentioned Wan'Dale Robinson, a water bug underneath, working out of the slot, sure-handed, get really creative in that offense with him on some high percentage throws. And then you bring in Carnell Tate, who's slick, who's savvy, can run every single round the tree. He's got reliable hands. He's not a blazing speed kind of guy, but, man, he showed up and showed out in OTAs, and I think that could carry over to the regular season. He only completed 59.8% of his attempts last season, threw for 3,169 yards as well. But if the defense is only slightly improved, which I think is going to be the case, that's going to put them in some shootout affairs, which only bolster the opportunities through the air. I think he could, blaze by this number. It could be like 3,700 passing yards when it's all said and done for Cam Ward in year numero dos. So give me the over 3,300 and a half pass yards at -110. Again, at our friends at BetMGM.
Yeah, I like that because I am kind of simpatico with you there. I'm going to stick with my guy, Wan'Dale Robinson, if I'm putting together a futures play here for the Titans, any of their offensive players. Give me his over, 725 and a half receiving yards. Again, last year he had 1,014. The year before that, 699, despite having 93 catches. Kind of tough to imagine that. Guy almost had 100 catches and only 700 yards. That's because his average depth of target is one of the lowest in the NFL, only 8.5 yards. Okay, but he became a yak monster last year, and the guy doesn't drop the football. 1.4% drop rate. That is among the 80th percentile of all NFL receivers. So he's got sturdy, reliable hands, like you mentioned. And again, I just think that Brian Daboll coming to Tennessee here, he is going to make sure that Wan'Dale Robinson gets the football because other than Carnell Tate, I mean, we saw these guys last year who were supposed to be the weapons for the Titans. Chimere Dike, Alec Manor. Like, they had some nice moments. But come on. I mean, you got a couple of you got some really good receivers now on this offense and Wan'Dale. And if Carnell Tate lives up to the hype. And again, I'm looking at the tight ends. Daniel Bellinger, another former Giant who's a run blocking tight end, and Gunnar Helm, who's going to be their number one tight end. His rookie season a year ago, he had 357 yards. And he played almost every game. So they're not throwing a ton to the tight ends. It's going to be a lot of Wan'Dale Robinson. I like him to go over his yards. Assuming he plays at least 15 games, I would imagine he is going to get there. Finally, Brad, what do you think of this Titans team overall? BetMGM's got their over-under wins at 6.5. They've got the 14th easiest schedule, so right smack dab in the middle. They play in the AFC South, which last year was pretty freaking good, and they might have had 3 playoff teams if Daniel Jones stayed healthy. But the AFC South, historically, not that strong of a division. Are the Titans going to be the anchor once again, or are they going to get some wins here and steadily build towards being a playoff team? What do you think? Is Tennessee in store to go over this year or under?
Well, Brando, make sure you have our friends Men at Work on the quick cue here because I am going to live in a land down under, my man. Way to be at the ready. 6.5 is an aggressive number. It really is. And I think shiver me timbers, Captain Hook, very much may come into play here. I think they're probably your 5 or 6 win franchise. Again, a light step in the right direction overall. But they do have a decent schedule. Not the easiest, not the hardest by any stretch of the imagination. You're going to see some improvement team-wide in certain categories. But hey, look at my friend Mike Clay at ESPN. Has only projected him for 4.8 wins, only gives them a 40% or greater win probability in only 4 contests this season, those being the New York Jets in week 1, the Cleveland Browns at home in week 7, the Washington Commanders in week 13, also in Las Vegas, and on the road in Sin City against Las Vegas and those Raiders. That's in week 16. Again, I think they'll find a way to win maybe 1 or 2 more games, but 7? I think that's a pipe dream. Give me 6 wins on the nose. That half will definitely come into play. So, again, living in a land down under at a -110.
Okay, I'm going to be opposite here, but only just. I do think they will go over, but I do think it's probably a 7-10 season for the Titans. And I'll tell you this much, if I'm really trying to get crystal ball forecasting here for you, I think they probably start this season off like 4-10. And then maybe they rip off 3 wins at the end of the year that don't really matter. Again, I'm looking at their schedule. They get to play the Jets in week 1. That's a winnable game for both of those teams. I think Tennessee is stronger on paper because I trust Cam Ward in year 2 more than I trust Geno Smith. And you got the revenge factor. Saleh looking to give it back to his team, even though it's been 2 years. I think they're a better team than the Jets. I think the Jets are terrible. Again, week 7, they play the Browns at home. They'll probably be favored in that game, especially with who the hell is going to play quarterback for Cleveland. Will it still be Deshaun Watson at that point? Will it be Shador? God knows who. They play the Colts at home in week 15. I mean, again, they play the AFC South. So, look, I know last year Jacksonville was great, and the Texans were a playoff team, and the Colts had a great start. 6 division games. I think the Titans can win 2. I think they can win 2 and 4 in the division. It's not good, but that's... Give me 2 division wins to add that to this ledger as I get to 7 here for the Titans. And then the last 3 weeks, they play the Raiders on the road. And who knows what that's going to look like. Las Vegas, when is Fernando Mendoza jumping into the road, under center? And with 3 games to play, are the Raiders, do they have any shot of the playoffs? Are they basically just playing towards next year at that point? Steelers in week 17. Now, again, the Steelers are probably going to be playing all the way down to the wire for a playoff spot, but Week 17, if things go wrong and Rodgers gets hurt or things go terribly and their season is over, that's a winnable game. And then Week 18, Houston may or may not have anything to play for. So, like, again, I could see the Titans starting off like 4-10 and then maybe just snagging 3 meaningless wins at the end of the year so they can tell themselves, oh, look, we're on the up and up. We've got great momentum heading into 2027. So I'll go over. But again, I'm not expecting this team to be a playoff team. I'm not expecting them to finish above 500. But I think that's a pretty sharp line there from our friends at BetMGM, 6.5. And I think they're either going to get 6, like Brad said, or they're going to get 7. So I'll go over for the Tennessee Titans.